So I let the secret out. This Impreza is getting a Gen 4 Chevy 6-liter. It is an L96. It's going to be a stock bottom end. I'm going to put a cam and springs and push rods in it. The factory push rods are a little worn, but everything else is perfect. I'm reusing all the bearings. Transmission is a Corvette T56 with an F-body front plate and bell housing. For now, it's going to have a spec clutch and billet flywheel, a stock style F-body slave cylinder / release bearing, and it will have a NP120 transfer case. That's from a Trailblazer SS. I opted for that because it's a direct fit on the Corvette output shaft splines. I will have to build an adapter to go from the transfer case to the transmission, but that's going to be relatively straightforward. Three of the bolt holes on the transmission and transfer case extension housing line up. So basically I'll put some threaded rod in those and some spacers, torque them down, get everything lined up, and then weld some aluminum plates to connect the two pieces. So the project today, so that I can start test fitting the engine in this chassis, is I have to modify the crossmember. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to remove the sway bar, and I'm going to take the crossmember out of the car, and I'm going to keep the factory wings or tabs where the lower control arm bolt goes through, add a piece of DOM steel tube on each side, and then go directly vertical from there, so that I don't have the hanging piece where the axle needs to go, because that suspension bolt is almost perfectly in line with the center of the wheel, which is where I need to put my new front axle. So I'm going to add some extension, and then once I get that in place, I will build a bar that goes across, and it will be about a ½ an inch lower than the bottom of the stock crossmember, and the engine will sit almost directly on that. I'll have maybe a ½ inch of clearance, so the ground clearance is going to be the same. As I tested in an earlier video, I am going to have to raise the hood slightly to make everything fit. I'm opting to use a pickup truck manifold. According to Richard Holdener, and I'll put the link up here to his video, a truck LS3 style manifold flows as well as an LS3 car manifold or as an LS6 manifold. So for my purposes, I'm not going to spend the money on stuff that I don't need right now anyway, because the goal is to put the motor in, get it to run, make somewhere in the 450 to 500 horsepower range, and then start doing all the little things like little but not inexpensive things like rebuild the transmission and upgrade the synchros, possibly upgrade the gear set, get custom-made axles. For this part of the build, I'm going to take the stock Subaru CV and the stock Trailblazer front and stock Ford Explorer rear axles and build some sleeves and just weld them together so that the car is drivable. And I'll send them and get them balanced at the drive shaft shop, but it's going to be all handmade right now to get everything working to where I can test it and see if the dynamics of the vehicle are worthwhile. Because there's a good chance that even though the engine transmission differential combo is only 150 pounds more than the stock Subaru, and theoretically the center of gravity is going to be further back, this car is so short it may not drive right at even 500 horsepower. So building it for 1,000 maybe may make the car undesirable, may make it something I don't want to drive. So I'm going to get everything in here, get it to run, and drive it around for a little bit and see if it's good, and then start spending real money on axles, transmission rebuild, aftermarket heads, aftermarket sheet metal intake manifold, ball bearing turbo possibly, although I prefer Borg Warner turbos. They're rebuildable at home, and having a turbo you can rebuild at your house that you don't have to send off and get balanced, I think is always better. And everyone talks about how much better a ball bearing turbo spools, but I'm going to have a 6-liter. How much spool do I need with 500 NA horsepower in a car that only weighs 3,000 pounds? I don't really need to make boost at 2,500 or 3,000 like most people do. And in a race setting, I'm going to lose boost between gears, but that's not really going to be an issue because this isn't going to be a drag car.